Hello. Thank you so much for coming to this video today, guys. I really appreciate it. This is my podcast. It's called the Cardano Aura. It's Cardano's use and utility podcast. I bring anybody in the Cardano ecosystem that's going to bring value to the Cardano protocol. And this one is a special one. It's with Ben Goertzel from SingularityNet. He's actually the founder of SingularityNet. But what they're doing is they're actually looking at Cardano for a number of reasons. And we're going to be going over those reasons today in this podcast to actually migrate a big portion of SingularityNet over to Cardano and maybe eventually all of SingularityNet, if we do provide the use and utility that they need. But it's an awesome podcast. So if you guys do enjoy it, please click the like button. Please comment down below, click the notification bell and click all. We have to show people all the great projects that are moving over to Cardano. And I think this is probably my favorite. This is the greatest one for me. But yeah, I'm really excited. I hope you guys enjoy it. But also, if you want to support me and support yourself, you can delegate to Bloom. We have Bloom through Bloom 6, and we pay about 5 to 5.5% rewards on your ADA a year. We actually minted the 8th ever block on the Cardano blockchain. Right, so we've been here from the beginning and we'll be here till year end. And we actually do have a sponsor of this video today, and it actually works well with some of the themes of this video. As you guys know, Cardano, one of the greatest aspects of it is that it's written in a formal verified language, right? And you can essentially read this for what it is. And this sponsor I'm going to be talking about today, Datacamp, and you can click that link down below, actually has a Haskell course on Datacamp. It's really awesome. So well, you can do a lot of stuff, right? It's not just Haskell. It's $25 a month, and you get unlimited access to all of their courses. And like for example, understanding and analyzing data is critical. So no matter what industry you're in, right? With Datacamp, you can learn data science today and apply it tomorrow. There's over 300 courses with interactive learning experiences, and for me, the one that I'm using is actually the Haskell course. I want to learn more about Haskell because, as you guys know, the Plutus language for Cardano is essentially a cryptocurrency specialized version of Haskell, right? So with Datacamp, you can really fit this into your schedule and start learning a little bit. So maybe you can build your own decentralized applications on the Cardano blockchain. And the lessons are bite-sized and they can fit into your schedule really easily. Their mobile version will also allow you to learn from anywhere. And you guys just have to click that link down below. You can try any first chapter of any course, maybe the Haskell course or maybe the data science course that I mentioned earlier. You can try those all for free. And by doing so, even just trying the free course, you do support my channel. This is my first sponsor, as you guys have ever seen. So yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. And like I said, if you do, please comment down below. If you guys have any cryptocurrency questions or Cardano questions, feel free. But I hope you guys enjoy it. Have a good rest of your week. Goodbye. Hello. Thank you guys so much for coming to this podcast today. This is the Cardano Aura podcast. This is a podcast where we bring anybody on the podcast that's actually providing value to the Cardano blockchain. And today we have Ben Goertzel. I'm really excited to have him on.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, pleasure to be here and talk a bit about what we're doing with AI on Cardano. Very exciting stuff happening.
Yeah, I'm actually thrilled about it. I actually first heard of SingularityNet. So you're the founder of SingularityNet, and I first heard of it from the Joe Rogan podcast. I think it was a couple or maybe even a few years ago now. And then following that, I listened to the long one you did on Lex Friedman, and I really I love that podcast. So I'm thrilled to have you on here today.
Yeah, Rogan was, I think, December 2018 or something. It seems like many eons ago.
Yeah, it really does.
In crypto time, right? But yeah, I've been mostly working in the AI space for the last few decades, right? Since I started out with a math PhD in the 80s. But decentralizing AI seemed important to me all the way back to, as soon as the internet came out, you could see you don't want any one party to control the AI. The AI should be like democratic and decentralized. And I think, Cardano is the first infrastructure out there that I see has potential to be capable to support like large scale decentralized AI systems. And
so before we jump into like what is SingularityNet, what is that potential that you see with Cardano?
Well, really, when I published a book in 2001 called Creating Internet Intelligence, and what I was aiming at there was a whole bunch of different AI processes living all around the globe and cooperating in a decentralized democratic way to do complex computations in a sort of self-organized way rather than a top-down way. And when Vitalik talked about the world computer around the time when Ethereum was first being conceived, like 2015 or whatever, 2014, whatever it was, I mean, it was really a similar idea, and smart contracts were supposed to support that. Now, I didn't manage to launch anything like that in 2001. Ethereum launched something, but it really doesn't have the sophistication or scalability of design to support that vision, although it's very cool what it has led to. Of course, it's changed the world. And I think Cardano, with the Plutus smart contracts being released, is a much more credible infrastructure for a world computer, right? And you can secure, scalable, privacy preserving, like decentralized, democratically governed world computer. And you can do a lot of things with such a world computer. And AI obviously is the one that I'm thinking most about, but there's a lot of other large scale decentralized software applications that you could make.
Yeah. So essentially what you're excited for is the fact that Cardano has this decentralized governance, and that's kind of at the heart of it with Cardano's Voltaire, and then also the scalability, that's coming in the future with Basho.
I started programming Haskell in 1993 when it was like the Gopher interpreter before GHC and all the modern Haskell tools. So, and both because I'm a mathematician and that's sort of a beautiful abstract way to organize code and ideas, but also, I mean, you have provability and verifiability of code enabled sort of very effectively by design, and that just seemed like a good thing. Like I mean, I'd been thinking about that originally from a strong AI view. Like if you have an AI system that has a certain goal system and a certain ethical orientation in it, wouldn't it be nice to prove formally that the AI code actually has the goal system you think it has?
You intended,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, for less highfalutin things than the goal system of your superhuman AGI. I mean, just for financial transactions or medical records. I mean, having verifiability that code is operating according to spec is a very nice thing. And pure functional languages make that just far simpler to do by design. So I was into that since forever, right? Probably since before Hoskinson was born, for that matter. And then I mean, so I mean, now that the fact that Cardano has come out with a smart contract language that basically is Haskell plus some cool libraries and extensions, I think that's extremely promising for reasons that are going to be obvious to everyone who's deep in the functional programming community, and maybe not obvious to everybody else, right? So the obvious example is like, Ouroboros is formally verified, and I mean you can formally verify that the code sending trillions of dollars around in the world economy actually is doing what it says it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's
Yeah,
also
I think that is a hard thing for a lot of people to understand. You kind of have to have that mindset because, a lot of us have heard from Charles, like, oh, formal verification is the way to go. But actually seeing you come into the space and actually seeing the value in that as well with all of the history you've had, is nice to see from our side as well, Because it's hard for people that aren't technical minded to really see the true value of formal verification,
Well, unless you've programmed a lot, you don't realize, like, almost all code has many bugs in it, right? And then, I mean, a good hacker can find those bugs. And it's really insane that the tens of trillions of dollars coursing around the globe in the world economy are running on fundamentally insecure software code, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. And in traditional finance, you have some parties, like say Jane Street Capital has been a pioneer. They're like hedge funds running on functional code, Haskell and OCaml and so on. But by and large, security is addressed by brute force mechanisms rather than just by security by design, by using programming languages that are not bug prone and formally, like, proving with math that that the code does what it's supposed to do. And yeah, this is going to be really important as we get more and more advanced AI systems. But it also, honestly, it already is important. I mean, look at all the ridiculous hacks out there already, which could be prevented by taking a sounder approach. And I think there's also other technical advantages to Cardano's architecture in the form of just better code reuse. Say, if for machine learning, you often want to do like secure multi-party computing, so you can have data owned by many different people living on many servers scattered all around the planet, and you want to do machine learning to learn what's in that data without requiring people to share the data with each other. So like you could have, say, a bunch of banks that want to do risk management analysis, or a bunch of pharma companies that want to do data mining on people's medical data, but without sharing the data with each other. Can the AI find patterns common among all this disparate, spread around data without needing to gather that data in one place and without violating anyone's confidentiality or privacy? Well, I mean, that's like secure multi-party computing. Now, Cardano has that like deep in the guts of the consensus mechanism. The cool thing is that due to the elegant software architecture, we could reuse some of that code for secure multi-party computing to help with doing secure MPC for machine learning algorithms, right? And that's related to how Hydra works, where you can have the smart contracts in a side chain isomorphically map into smart contracts on the main chain. You can have multi-party computing on the native asset isomorphically map into multi-party computing like in the main Cardano system. And this is all, obscure technical voodoo, I guess, if you're not a functional programming developer, but it's the sort of thing that makes developing.
Well, it's incredible, man. It really is.
And it makes developing a world computer just orders of magnitude easier. I mean, the reason the SingularityNet community is psyched about moving to Cardano is just they're sick of paying $25 or $100 in gas costs for a simple transaction and having a transaction take minutes instead of like a fraction of a second or something, right? So I mean, they're just fed up with cost and scalability issues, and Cardano does work around cost and scalability issues. But I mean, the bottom line is like NEM has been cheap and fast for years. It's been around since 2015, right? And the Algorand is cheap and fast. Elrond is cheap and fast. And I mean, I don't own those tokens. I'm not shilling those things, right? It's just the point is there's a shitload of things that are cheaper and faster than Ethereum out there and just don't have traction. It's a necessary condition that Cardano is cheap and fast,
but it's not just that.
That it's not a sufficient condition like to win the blockchain competition, because if you're starting from scratch rather than having to be backward compatible, it's not that hard to be cheaper and faster than Ethereum, right? The real win is the Plutus smart contract framework and the other things that come with it in Gogum release, because I mean this just opens up a lot of other avenues for sophisticated large-scale development of software systems. And I think that lets you do advanced stuff like we're doing with porting our SingularityNet decentralized AI network under Cardano, but it should also let banks and pharma companies and supply chain applications and whole bunch of other domains of complex distributed software application. I mean, I think the Gogum release will allow these things to be rolled out on the Cardano network, and you can't do that with the other blockchains out there. In Ethereum, you can't because it's too inefficient and expensive. In the other blockchains that are faster and cheaper, you can't do it because you don't have a sufficiently capable smart contract platform. So I mean, I think Cardano is in quite a unique position going forward from this next release.
I agree with you there, and I really appreciate your insight on that. And so the next thing I want to get into is specifically for someone who's never heard of SingularityNet before, never heard of what you guys are doing, because my channel recently has been growing a lot, and a lot of it's new people. They don't even know, really about even creating a wallet. So I kind of just want a general overview of what SingularityNet is first, and then we can go into kind of your guys' proposal, that was voted and passed, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, sure. And it's true. Living around people who are into crypto, you forget that the level of knowledge.
Yeah, and I have a weird insight on that because I
Yeah.
spend so much time replying to messages and emails and comments that compared to a month and a half ago, the average overall has gone down significantly just in a month. So.
I mean, when I went on Joe Rogan's show, like Rogan is a very smart guy, but he knew about Bitcoin, but he didn't know that other cryptocurrencies existed at that point. I mean now it's been a couple years, but yeah, it is. I guess it's not surprising when you look at how fast crypto has grown, right? Like if you've been in the crypto world, it seems like it's been forever because there've been so many insane ups and downs, but it's really
Exactly.
not that many years, right? So yes, SingularityNet is, so it's not a specific AI application or AI algorithm, although I have launched a bunch of specific AI algorithms and applications. SingularityNet it's a platform for running different AI programs on it, and it's a platform that lets a whole bunch of different AIs run in a decentralized way. So anyone can put an AI out there onto SingularityNet platform, put it online on your own computer, put it on a server farm somewhere, put it wherever, right? And then that AI can run a certain script which tells the rest of SingularityNet that it's there. Then it's joining the global SingularityNet community. So it's just like anyone could put an Ethereum or Bitcoin node online, right? So you can put your SingularityNet agent online anywhere, and then if your AI agent does something, it classifies images, it answers questions, it solves reasoning problems, right? If someone else in the world wants that AI problem solved, they can make a request to your AI agent, and then it will say, well, okay, I can solve your problem for this amount of money, which is where the AGI token comes in.
Yeah.
And then you have a financial smart contract between you who needed some AI services done and the agent that is providing the AI services, right? And so the AGI token is used for payment and then for some other purposes like rating and reputation and incentivizing development. But the thing is, there doesn't have to be any central clearinghouse or something. All the AI agents can just be all over the place, and there's peer-to-peer discovery mechanism that finds the agent.
Well, how do they talk to each other without really a centralized site or some sort of?
Well, I mean, how do Ethereum or Bitcoin nodes or ADA nodes talk to each other?
So it's just essentially running a node.
It's a peer-to-peer protocol. Yeah. So SingularityNet is a peer-to-peer protocol for communication of AIs. Now you can.
But how would that look like for the average user when you get on there and you see all these different AIs? How does somebody with really a certain specialization that they want done, how do they find that in the node?
You can make registries which cover part of the network. So SingularityNet Foundation, which is the nonprofit foundation that has built most of SingularityNet, we have a registry of AI agents that we have reviewed and approved as being good, which includes a lot of stuff that we coded ourselves and some other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a similar thing in Cardano for stake pools. We have a centralized metadata platform for the stake pools that's run by IOG. So
right, but that doesn't have to be complete. And if you think about it geopolitically, like if some folks in Tehran or something or Isfahan in Iran put some AIs on SingularityNet, like as a U.S. citizen, due to sanctions, I cannot legally list their AI agent on a registry that I curate, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I'm violating sanctions. On the other hand, SingularityNet is a decentralized protocol, and folks in Iran can put their own registry of Iranian SingularityNet AI agents, and that can be connected to a website, right? And then if you're in like Ethiopia or somewhere that doesn't care about sanctions against Iran, then you can go to those AI agents and that's all running on the decentralized platform and protocol, right? So I mean, you can also have, say, what white labeled marketplaces, right? Like some industry organization might want to make a curated set of AI agents made by their members and offer that. You can do that too. So the basis of it is purely decentralized and peer-to-peer. But of course, you can aggregate and curate sets of agents on top of that. So I mean, this is all, from the average end user's point of view, it's back end, right? So I mean, because these are AI services accessible by API. So I mean, these are things that are accessed on the back end of some app or application, which could be anything, right? So it could be end user, like there's some folks built a music app, like a song splitter app that strips vocals and different instrument tracks out of a song. So that's just an app that strips vocals out of a song if you're doing that in making videos or music or something. On the back end, that makes API calls into an agent running on SingularityNet. But the fact that that's happening on the back end, that doesn't matter to the end user of the app any more than they care whether the back end is running on like AWS or Google Cloud or some other server farm, right? And so, I mean, similarly, we have there's an AI service running on SingularityNet doing like machine learning for genomics data analysis. So it analyzes a bunch of DNA data to find what genes are most important in, say, telling who has cancer, who doesn't, or something, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that if a biologist is using that to analyze some DNA data, I mean, it may not matter to them whether that's running on a decentralized platform or whatever, right? That's just the back end of this genomic data analysis app. So really the users, in most cases, the main users are, developers of software apps or applications who need AI on the back end of whatever they're building. The average person on the planet is an end user of apps that are built on the platform rather than an end user of the platform directly, right? And I mean, that
makes sense.
But I mean, most of Amazon's revenue now, their biggest chunk of revenue is from AWS, which is just providing processor and server on the back end of other people's apps and applications, right? I mean, the back end for processing of all kinds, including AI processing, is quite huge. But then, in order to really make this a viable business model, we need something that's cheaper and faster than Ethereum, right? Because I mean, the whole SingularityNet design has been an exercise in working around the limitations of Ethereum by setting up all these side channels and stuff, similar to what side chains.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about side channels. Yeah,
it's all different. Like there's 6 different channels that are set up between 2 agents when they talk on SingularityNet. But as of now, like the gas cost is so insane, even with all the use of side channels. Like the small number of Ethereum transactions that do have to be made are already too expensive, right? So I mean, I think the Cardano network in its current form is cheap enough and scalable enough, like for all the AI agents that are out there now on SingularityNet. Now, for our long-term vision, if you want to have like swarms of millions of AI agents that are being created and destroyed every second, I mean, then we would need orders of magnitude reduction in current Cardano costs, actually. And I think that's feasible within the Cardano framework. Like, I mean, one could make like microservices friendly consensus mechanisms inside Cardano without breaking Plutus or something. It would just be upgrades under the hood. So
and then the fee that's actually charged is a parameter, that can be voted on. It's one of those parameters that we can all set. So if 0.17 ADA is too much, in the future for a certain service that does provide a lot of value, then people can vote to lower that.
Right, but if you lower the fee really, really low, like you need to have like Swarm AI and microservices, then you need to do something else
Yeah, to
Well,
pay this to pay the delegates too, you know, because as the
well, to
reserves go
protect
down.
against like DDoS attacks or something, right? So I mean, because
Really?
what one function of the fee is it makes it expensive to just do a bunch of spam transactions, whereas
Hmm.
the fee's
Yeah, I've
really
never
low.
thought of that. Yeah.
If the fees, but they're, I mean, there's other tricks you can use for that. But so there's a lot of considerations. I mean, yeah, I mean, you need to compensate delegators and you need to protect against various attacks. But there are workarounds for that. I mean, Charles and I have discussed some of these points, and I think in the next couple of years, Cardano can get there. And I think if you look at the research literature of the Cardano community, there's a lot of amazing computer science depth in there, which has not yet been rolled out into the code base, but will be, right? And so I think that's another one of the interesting things there. The I mean the sort of academic focus of some of the of IOHK's effort in a way is frustrating at times because there's a lot of stuff there that you see looks cool but you can't use. On the other hand,
Yeah.
there's a incredible fund of stuff that's been prototyped and like theoretically demonstrated to work. And I think with Plutus out there, you're going to see a lot of that pretty rapidly coming into realization, which should be quite interesting. And a
Yeah.
lot of that is relevant to the AI work that we're doing also.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm so excited for Plutus to roll out and just really to see people start building, you know. I've been waiting years for this.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting because, you know, I have, in addition to SingularityNet, we have an AI project called OpenCOG, which is sort of our general intelligence architecture, and we're building a new version of that called Hyperon, which is going on SNet on Cardano. But the reason we didn't do the original version of OpenCOG in Haskell is it was too hard to recruit Haskell developers, right? And I think Cardano, for its core development, is going to face that issue, right? I mean, I love Haskell, but there's not that we only have like two other Haskell developers inside SingularityNet team, right? If you know math and computer science, it's not that hard, but for many developers, it's a cognitive struggle to come to grips with
Yeah.
higher order types. So, but I think one of the interesting things with putting SingularityNet on top of Cardano is, while we're going to use Plutus smart contracts, I mean, to integrate your AI agent with SingularityNet is still just Python coding, right? So you don't actually, while Plutus is in the guts, to make your AI agent run in SingularityNet platform on top of Cardano, you don't even have to know what Plutus is. You just have to be able to write some simple Python script. So
Yeah.
we'll still be able to get a lot of traction, even among, you know, developers who just know plain vanilla scripting languages.
So how does OpenCOG work? You said it's your general intelligence. Can,
That's certainly a long topic, but yeah,
is it?
there's a
It's my
weighted labeled
curiosity.
hypergraph knowledge store. So it's like nodes and links that can point to multiple nodes, links that point to many links, and this is a huge distributed in-RAM knowledge hypergraph. And then there's multiple AI agents that act collaboratively on this hypergraph. So there's some neural nets, like transformal neural net for language and convolutional neural net for vision. But there's also logical reasoning engine, which stores its like logical predicates in the nodes and links in the hypergraph and does probabilistic logic inference. There's evolutionary program learning algorithm that takes like a software spec and evolves little program graphs till it finds a program that will fulfill the spec. And then these different AI algorithms, neural nets, logic engine, and evolutionary learning, they work together on the same knowledge hypergraph and are
That's so cool.
collaboratively updating it to try to achieve system goals. And we're rebuilding a lot of this to work decentralized on SingularityNet now. So the knowledge graph lives among a bunch of decentralized nodes. And I mean, that comes into why we want a world computer, right? Because
Yeah.
you need a good infrastructure for that, and I mean Ethereum doesn't do it, and that needs more than just a fast blockchain, right? I mean that needs a lot of subtlety. So this ties into a project that Charles and I have launched. We're already working on it now, which is the AI DSL. So it's an AI domain-specific language or description language. So it's a functional programming language for describing what one software does in a formal way, so another software process can understand it. So if you have two AI agents or two non-AI software processes, and they want to say one wants to outsource work to another one, or I mean, it could be for that matter two blockchains that want to be interoperable, right? You want them to be able to interoperate and exchange data with no human in the loop. So for that you need the AI to have, you need the software processes to have a standard formal language for talking to each other, for describing to each other what each other are doing, and we're building that in a function language called Idris, actually, which is a little more obscure and abstract than Haskell, which underlies Plutus. But the cool thing is, like, you could isomorphically map between descriptions of a software process in the AI DSL and Idris. You could map that into Haskell for Plutus purposes, or you can map that into Atomise, which is our function language inside OpenCOG. Like, if once you're in the domain of pure functional languages, you can isomorphically map among the different languages in an elegant way, and you can get like provably correct, provably secure computing and AI and ultimately general intelligence to work in a decentralized way. So there's a lot of funky computer science underlying all this, which is
just hearing you talk about OpenCOG, just I don't know, just something about it blew my mind. I'm definitely gonna listen to hours about that later on. But
yeah,
it's just the idea of just a decentralized, decentralized AIs all work.
In the Lex Friedman podcast, I dug into OpenCOG a fair bit, but not so much into the decentralized aspect.
Yeah, because that's the part that kind of set the light bulb off, you know.
It's super important. I mean, and for a lot of reasons. But I mean, you think about whoever creates the first AGI that can really think as well as a person. I mean, immediately a whole lot of power-hungry parties on the planet are going to try to take it over, or try to kill whoever created it, or shut down the server farm, or make it all black inside some intelligence operation. I mean, because this is a serious thing once you get a machine that can really think as well as a person, and you need that to be like Linux, like everywhere and nowhere, right? And like Bitcoin or Cardano, everywhere and nowhere. Like how could a government shut down Linux? They can't do it. Like you could assassinate the whole kernel team, but some other kernel team will pop up, right? I mean, so that's you need the first AGI to be fully decentralized in the way that Linux or the internet is. Otherwise, things are going to go apeshit once we really make the breakthrough to general intelligence. And
so,
that's sort of a long-term thing, but it's absolutely the same sort of reason that Satoshi wanted Bitcoin not to be controlled by any central party, right? I mean, it's totally in the same vibe.
Yeah. So this is a little bit out of scope. Before we go into your plan with Cardano, is there any limitations with decentralization that you foresee kind of holding a decentralized AI from coming first relative to a centralized company working on it, or is there advantages to kind of this method?
I think there are intrinsic computational disadvantages, but they're not blockers. They don't have to be blockers. I mean, there are some things where it's intrinsically more efficient to centralize them, and if you're decentralizing it, you are paying a computational cost, and you can't entirely eliminate that cost, but you can reduce that cost small enough that it's not your main problem. And I mean, I think I mean, security is the same way. I mean, making something secure by design there's intrinsic computational efficiency there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make it insecure, you can make it faster, right? And I mean, just like UDP is faster than TCP/IP, right? I mean, so, but I think with good design, these costs can be reduced, and so and Cardano does a good job of that. So I don't think that's not the main problem. I think the main disadvantage is more a business model disadvantage, which is, I mean, Google, Microsoft, Facebook. I mean, Apple. These, you have a lot of trillion-dollar companies there.
Yeah.
Google dropped a couple $1 billion on Google DeepMind now, and they've been willing to lose money on it because they want the R&D done, right? So there's simply insanely large amounts of money going into centralized AI. Chinese government is putting so much money into it in the form of Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, research labs, and so forth, right? So I mean, that's a significant problem, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Cardano has a nice 10 billion plus market cap now, but I mean, that's
relative.
it's
Nothing.
not, it's not $1 trillion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, on the other hand, Linux is sort of the paradigm case where, I mean, Windows and OS X are also developed by trillion-dollar companies, but Linux is like 70% plus of the internet, and in the form of Android, it's the majority of mobile, right? So there you have something which had much less money behind it.
There's hope.
But yeah, on the strength of superior technical foundation and a decentralized developer community, it managed to become dominant in very key areas, right? So decentralized has the strength that it can pull in a more diverse and passionate community to help build stuff. And if everything lines up right, that can win, even though you have orders of magnitude more resources on the centralized side. But I mean, that's what has to be done, and I think neither SingularityNet nor Cardano is there yet in terms of like a Linux level developer community. I mean, there's great developer community, but it's not huge enough, frankly, yet to defeat Microsoft and Google and Tencent, right? And that's, one hopes that Plutus can help solve that, right? Because when you have ways for people to develop native assets and other sorts of custom applications more easily on top of Cardano, I mean, that can build the developer community in direct and indirect ways. And with that larger developer community, I mean, you're getting cognitive firepower and you're getting developer time. And I think pulling in the developing world is a very interesting part of it. And this was one of the funkier coincidences in my collaboration with Charles is, you know, we both had offices and software projects in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which is not that many tech projects do, right? Like I co-founded an AI and robotics outsourcing company, AGIX Labs, in Addis in 2014. My daughter was the first American exchange student in Ethiopia. So now my son-in-law is a Ethiopian computer security guy. But then, so I spent a lot of time in Addis, and then IOHK actually, you know, they had a big training program for Haskell blockchain developers, and we're now planning to co-locate the SingularityNet Ethiopia team with the IOHK Ethiopia team in like a shared office there. But I think that in itself is cool because the Addis guys are a bunch of computer geniuses, but it also indicates a fundamental advantage of the decentralized world in that we're not restricted to hiring people in Silicon Valley or New York or Seattle or something, right? I mean, a decentralized project, we can pull in developers from literally every country on the planet, like anywhere where you got computers and internet, which is not yet everywhere on the planet, but it's every city on the planet, right? So I mean, in theory, there's a broader developer pool for decentralized projects, and Linux has leveraged that very well. Like, I mean, Canonical, which launched Ubuntu, is a South Africa company, for example. So, and I think both Charles and I are oriented toward leveraging the developer community in the developing world, both because it's good business sense and because that's the best way to help the developing world. Like charity doesn't work well, but if you can foster productive development in the developing world, I mean that is helping give the developing world tools to grow their own economies in an advanced technology way, and that can be an advantage the decentralized paradigm has, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a huge advantage. But yeah, let's go into the second treasury action for AGI, and I'm curious on your proposal and really what's the
Yeah,
scope of that.
this was a big one, right? So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we founded SingularityNet in mid 2017. Then we did the first token generation event December 2017, which is minting a billion AGI tokens on the Ethereum blockchain, of which half of them were released and sold to the public, and the rest were used for to incentivize development and so forth, and for advisors and partners. So now what we've just launched with the approval of something like 90% of the AGI token holders who voted in the election on it. What we've just approved now is to create a billion more tokens, so equal to the original token generation event in 2017. They will be one-to-one equally swappable with the AGI tokens in Ethereum. So it's like a silver dollar versus a paper dollar or something. It's different form, but you can swap between one or the other at the same value. But these are going to be Cardano native assets, and we're not releasing them all at once. We'll release some in month one, sort of as soon as Plutus is ready for it, which should be sometime first half of this year. So we'll release 15 million tokens initially, and then decreasing amount each month after that. So decreasing by 1.5% each month until the.
And is that releasing for development?
Yeah, so these will be used for a number of things. So half goes to SingularityNet Foundation, which will use them to incentivize and fund development. 30% goes into a pool we're calling the Deep Funding Pool, the Decentralized Ecosystem Projects Pool. And this is much like Voltaire,
Yeah,
Cardano,
treasury system. That's
but
awesome.
it's actually a larger percentage of SingularityNet than Voltaire is of Cardano, right? So this is to incentivize and fund community-based projects in a way that's democratically voted on by the community of token holders. And this is,
That's so
I mean, this
cool.
is
That's
our
so
effort
cool that you
to.
can submit a proposal for an artificial intelligence that you're building and then have a decentralized system vote on if they get funding for that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
that's
right. And so
incredible. It's incredible.
we're basically we're gonna reuse the Catalyst software,
Mm-hmm.
just use it for the Cardano native for the AGI native asset instead of for ADA tokens. So we're looking at sort of how do we need to tweak the Voltaire process just for the differences in what we're doing, but it's gonna be pretty similar. So that I think that the innovation that IOHK has done, for the launching Voltaire and Catalyst is a shortcut for us, right? Because then we can just take that process and adapt it slightly rather than having to start from scratch. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be quite interesting. Yeah. Then there's some tokens in this staking pool and liquidity pool, and then a reward pool for a curation market for like reputation rating agents and so forth. So yeah, the tokens are there for development and platform growth in various ways, and I think this should allow us to accelerate development considerably. It's already been going pretty fast, but this should let us amp things up even better. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, and I think it should be a phase of extremely rapid growth, and I'm hoping that the AGI ecosystem and the ADA Cardano ecosystem can then help each other, grow, because every AI application that's built on the AGI native asset, of course, that's running on the Cardano platform. It's using some ADA token as well for transactions,
Mm-hmm.
and of course
Well,
development that make.
for now, especially if we grow together, I'm sure eventually you'll be able to use AGIs for fees as well. You know, that's kind of Charles's vision is multiple tokens as fees.
Well, it should be both logically, right? So
Yeah.
there should be some portion that is ADA because you need to reward the underlying consensus mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't want to we don't want to replicate that. And then I mean we're looking at other layer 2 networks on top of SingularityNet network itself. So there's a network called NewNet that a group is building, which will probably, I'm sure they'll submit for funding from the deep funding pool actually. But we've been incubating that within SingularityNet. So that's a sort of decentralized marketplace for AI processing power. So you can put some cycles on your phone or cycles on your laptop into various AI processes, and you get some reward tokens for that, right? So that's that will leverage SingularityNet network, which leverages the ADA network, right? So I mean, we can have multiple layers, and it doesn't have to be expensive if they're all well designed, right? So I think there's a lot of amazing things that can happen, and yeah, the Plutus is going to be. I mean, it's not the end all because there's more and more development, but I think it's a very meaningful threshold. It's probably one of the biggest. I mean, it's the biggest threshold since the launch of the consensus mechanism in Cardano's history, I'd say.
Yeah, it's obviously not the end all if you guys are already working together to design another language to speak for the AI to speak with each other. You know, the DSL.
Well, yeah, and you need improvements in scalability to get sort of microservices. I mean, there's
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
There's plenty more that's needed, but I mean, smart contracts are a huge part of the ecosystem, and I'm curious to see how fast the whole decentralized finance world moves into Cardano, actually, because I mean, they're all moving into Ethereum side chains now, but still, when you need to buy or sell the underlying asset, unless it's wrapped in the side chain, you're still paying Ethereum gas, right? So I mean, I think it should be quite interesting because that's not been my main focus. I'm more interested in sort of general intelligence research, but we have a SingularityNet spinoff. We're working on the background. It's called SingularityDAO, which is AI for decentralized finance, and I think having this sort of thing running on Cardano, I mean, you're getting rid of the frictional costs, right? And you also if you have like a private chain, so say you have a bank that wants to do some blockchain stuff internally, but they also want to interoperate with the public network. I mean, you can have elegant isomorphisms between a private Cardano network and the public Cardano network. And if you're trying to do that with Ethereum or EOS or something, it's just the mapping of private to public requires more work. It's a little more awkward. So I think the ability to make elegant relationship between a private and public chain on Cardano
is it just because of the cost? Is it just because of the cost of it getting that data, like periodically?
No, it's not just the cost.
How does Cardano have the ability, to talk?
Because the Haskell language has the ability to set up sort of mathematical mappings between different smart contracts in an automatic way.
Okay.
It's because a Haskell program is its own mathematical formalization, right? Whereas a Solidity program, Solidity is an imperative language, so it's not, in a useful sense, its own mathematical description. A Haskell program is closer to being its own mathematical description. So if you need to map between a contract in a private subchain and a smart contract in the public subchain, those contracts are very close to knowing how to describe themselves to each other. So you can just map between the two in a formal way, right? So it's quite elegant, right? And you can't build those isomorphisms between two Solidity contracts in any practical way. But so an isomorphism is a mathematical term for a structure preserving mapping. Like you can map one contract into another in a way that preserves all the key properties. But you can set up those mappings automatically between smart contracts and Plutus. You can't do that in WebAssembly or in Solidity, and that has a lot of implications, right? It lets you map from a side chain into the main chain. It also lets you map from like a private fork into the public chain. And I mean, it's that should have a payoff in terms of making it cheaper and easier to run sort of layer 2 networks on top of Cardano. But it also has a payoff that when you have, say, a large bank that wants a private blockchain and they want to do stuff on the public blockchain, the interoperation there is very simple. Which, like, if you look at what Consensus is trying to do with Ethereum or what JP Morgan was trying to do with their own blockchain, I mean, all those things are going to be much nicer with Plutus. And I think financial services industry will see that, because they're always early adopters of technology. And then, I mean, they're also early adopters of AI technology, right? So I think you're going to see a big payoff for Cardano and SingularityNet as DeFi mainstreams and DeFi merges with traditional finance, because then you have large traditional financial organizations that want blockchain inside, and they're increasingly going to be dealing with public blockchain markets, and they're going to want nice interoperation between them. And they're frankly they're by now used to software that is less crappy than Ethereum or WebAssembly. Their software frameworks are not as good as Cardano, but they're better than other blockchains. So they don't want to take a step backwards, but they will take a step forwards. And this could be what turns Cardano into $100 billion market cap, right? It's going to become the engine of DeFi, and then being the engine of DeFi when DeFi merges with traditional finance, and then as AI gradually takes over finance, then SingularityNet is jumping in there, and then within a few years, I mean, you can have tens of trillions of dollars of financial transactions being coordinated by machine learning algorithms running a combination of public and private Cardano blockchain, right? And that's sort of, if you look at the logic of it, it almost has to happen. But
that's like a value of the formal language design that the average person wouldn't see. It touches back to what we were talking into earlier, that no one really. Right.
That's just. But the guys at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan do understand it, right? And so that's. I mean, fintech is not my favorite domain on a purely personal level, because I'm sort of more interested in helping the developing world advance. Like if you could get speech to speech machine translation, so any language in the world, people, even a language with no writing, people are talking to their phone and it'll be translated into an English query against Wikipedia or a medical database. Like that's amazing, and I want to support that. But on the other hand, fintech, these are early adopters, and they're good at understanding advanced technology, and that can just get a lot of financial value into the ecosystem, which then provides the wealth that can solve speech-to-speech machine translation and all these, and AI for curing disease and minimizing crop disease and all the social good applications.
You really just blew my mind there, Ben. I have to admit. Wasn't expecting that. Yeah,
it almost goes in so many directions.
It really does.
It's hard for anyone to keep up with, right? I mean, both AI and blockchain in principle should underlie essentially all software, and software is increasingly underlying essentially all aspects of human pursuit. So I mean the upper limit is really not there, because we're expanding toward a technological singularity anyway, right? So it is and what's pretty cool is, for the first time in human history, like, we're living in a time when all these revolutions can happen in our lifetimes, right? I mean, that was never the case in prior generations.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I wanted to touch back on the supply that we were going over earlier. So you said that 30% of the supply is going to be taken out, and then half of that's going to be for development. And then was it for the other half is going to be for the treasury system?
So half is for
the foundation.
Half is going to SingularityNet Foundation, which will be used for development directed by the foundation, and 30% is for community-driven development. And then the remainder is in a few different. So there's a liquidity pool which we need to support the fiat to crypto conversion, so that folks can pay in fiat currency on the platform. And then there's a staking rewards pool. And there's a reputation reward pool, which is used for a curation market to reward people for making accurate rating of agents. And so that's
what's the staking rewards pool? I'm curious about that.
Well, I mean, if people stake their token, I mean, it's very simple. This is simply a pool that we can draw on to give people
like an ADA staking pool
for staking their token. Yeah, but it's AGI staking, and this.
So you can stake AGI as well?
Yeah, you can stake AGI. I mean, you can stake AGI on Ethereum now, but it's become shit because the gas cost to stake is exceeds the reward you get for staking in many cases. So that doesn't make sense anymore. But I mean. Yeah, because we want AGI liquidity pool to support, mostly to support fiat payments, right? Because in the AI space, I mean, most customers who need AI services don't want to deal with crypto at this point in time. So they want to pay in dollar or euro or yen or something, right? So you need a liquidity pool of AGI token on the back end so that you can market make between the fiat being paid for AI services and the fiat being paid to AI service providers. But on the back end, it's all using the AGI token. So folks who stake their tokens are bringing those tokens into that liquidity pool, and they get some reward for providing that liquidity.
So that's kind of different than the way staking. So a normal staking pool couldn't have AGI stake to their pool, right?
Yeah, it's different than a normal staking.
So it's providing liquidity. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So on the Cardano blockchain, how would that work? Do you essentially send your ADA to a smart contract, or do you just essentially sign it?
Yeah, we have to write a staking contract in Plutus, which hasn't been written yet. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, now that's a Solidity staking contract, but that's I think that won't be instantaneous, because for just putting AGI on Cardano, we just need the MPS, like the monetary policy scripts, which is that's sort of a Plutus template. The staking contract is a little more custom development, but that's simpler than porting the SingularityNet marketplace, which is a fairly complex multi-party escrow contract that also has to be ported. But I mean, the IOHK team is being very, very collaborative and working with SingularityNet platform team in working through how to port all this stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's where the 30% is going. See, when you said staking pool, it got my mind wandering, right? Because I have the Cardano bias when I hear the word staking, and whereas when I think of that, it's providing liquidity.
Staking is different, and there could be ways for AI to help with things in the Cardano staking also, but this is a whole other topic.
So yeah, it's a whole other topic for sure. So that's 30% of that 1 billion. Where's the other 70% going to go?
No, hold on. 50% is to the foundation for development. 30% is for community-driven development. Staking pool is 5%. Then there's 5% that's just.
Yeah, I misunderstood that.
For a liquidity pool.
I thought you were saying of the 30%, it's 50% going to that. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
This is all on the SingularityNet Phase 2 white paper document, which is linked from SingularityNet.
Yeah, and then I'll link that down below too as well.
For those who want to go through all the particulars here, and so we will be starting with this as soon as Plutus is ready, basically, which will certainly be Q2 of this year. We're not sure. Maybe it could be April, it could be a little later. We'll see how development goes. But then yeah, I mean, the idea with releasing a certain amount of tokens in the first month at 1.5% fewer each month. I mean, of course, if the exchange value increases faster than 1.5% a month, then you have an increasing amount of value going into the development in that way. And I think we're looking forward. There's going to be ups and downs because crypto is like that, but I mean, we're looking forward to rapid exponential growth.
Yeah. So what was the response from the community?
The initial response was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And then after a couple days, by and large, I mean, after a couple days of intensive discussion with the community, I mean, of the voters, we had like 90% yes votes and 10% no votes. Maybe more like 85% or something. But I mean, dramatic preponderance of votes for yes anyway. So I think there's an initial resistance to increasing token supply in the crypto world. I mean, people like it being fixed, right? And I mean, yeah, it was to get the numbers right. It was well over 90% of voters. But if you look at number of votes in terms of tokens voting, then it was over 80%, but not over 90%. But anyway, is
So how do you vote on the Ethereum blockchain? I'm just curious. How did you guys go about that?
So
my Cardano bias once again.
We made a centralized voting approach to avoid gas costs. Right? I mean, you could make a purely that gave purely decentralized voting, and then all the votes would be on the blockchain. But we opted not to do that because we didn't want to have to pay so much gas per vote. So I mean, we just made a smart contract, a voting contract, and we hosted that contract, and then people went to it through MetaMask. People have to log in through MetaMask and then vote. So I mean, if you have your tokens in Binance, you have to take them out into MetaMask to vote.
So then they just sign one transaction?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, MetaMask, it's not my favorite piece of software on the planet, but it's not that hard to use, right? So
yeah,
that made things relatively easy. The shitty thing was having to make a centralized voting mechanism. I mean, in the end, it's okay in this context. I mean, the voters are trusting the foundation also to mint all these tokens and so forth. So I mean, there's still
the centralized aspect to it.
Yeah, there's still a centralized aspect to it. I mean, I think Charles and I have a similar philosophy there in terms of progressive decentralization. I mean, I think we're both genuinely wanting to make these things purely decentralized as the end game. But I think we also both see that
sometimes it's not ready.
Well, if you do that too quickly, development everything will bog down, will become very slow, and will be very philosophically pure, but you will lose the technology race, right? So, I mean, the challenge is like, and the balance there is like, how decentralized can you get, how fast, without becoming extremely inefficient and just having the shit beat out of you by, Google and MasterCard and Microsoft and everyone who's top down. And so that was like, we have 50% of these new tokens for development that's orchestrated by the foundation, which is in a more centralized way. Although, I mean, the developers are still physically all over the place, and we still will listen to the community. And 30%, which is really in a purely decentralized mode. And I mean, that it was intentional that it was that way instead of like 90% decentralized and 10% more centralized. Like, I think for building out the core plumbing of what we need to build, it's still going to work better to have, a team of developers working in a few offices, we have a great team in Bangalore, a team in St. Petersburg, team in Brazil, the team in Africa. I'm building a small team here in Seattle area, and that's just very efficient. On the other hand, you don't want to get too narrow, right? And I think for building stuff on top of the network, and just for getting innovative, wild, out there ideas that we never thought of, you want to have some non-trivial portion of your development tokens going into just whatever wild ass shit the world throws at you, right? And that's
and we did the same thing with Cardano with the D parameter, of course. We just slowly decremented over time to whereas in I think it's March 31st is what we're looking at. We're going to be 100% decentralized. So 100% of the blocks being made by stake pools.
Yep, it's the same philosophy exactly. So.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and end it there. I really appreciate you coming on here today and telling the Cardano community about SingularityNet. And I got to say, this is the project I'm most excited for coming to Cardano. All the DeFi stuff. This is just so much cooler to me. So I really appreciate you really taking the time out of your day to come on here.
No, thanks a lot. And it's fun stuff to talk about, right? So we got to go a little bit into the functional programming plumbing, which is always cool stuff to talk about. So
yeah, it was awesome to talk about, and you made something click there for me too, so I appreciate that.
I'm super psyched about the token port, and then the following years of close collaboration with the IOHK and the IOG and the whole Cardano ecosystem. So I think going to be a very exciting phase of development for everyone.
Yeah, I'm so hyped too. Well, if you guys made it to the end of the podcast, please type Ben Goertzel down below. SingularityNet's coming to Cardano. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, click that notification bell, click all, and then also leave a comment. But I hope you guys all have a good rest of your weekend. See you guys.